When it comes to the N64 titles for The Legend of Zelda, there has been a lot of time invested into finding all sorts of new glitches. However, not all of these glitches are useful for the speedruns, but that isn't too big of a deal to be honest, as the glitches and their possible uses are incredibly fascinating already. Just seeing how the game handles different things that just weren't intended and how it still tries to keep everything running is really interesting to see. So while we usually try to show the way speedrunners do things and what glitches there are that people can use to speed up their playthrough, let's have a look at glitches that are hardly ever seen. First of all, let's have a look at a glitch that is actually seen fairly often in Ocarina of Time any % speedruns. Get item manipulation. This is a glitch that uses a busy camera that still has to do things in order to keep the game running when picking up an item with a cutscene. As the camera is still instructed to move, the game will not stop as Link holds an item above his head, allowing him to take damage from enemies, which will then interrupt the get item animation and allow the player to manipulate the value of the item he's supposed to get. While this trick is mostly used in Ocarina of Time to get light arrows instead of Deku Nuts, this also exists in Majora's Mask. However, it's never used. This is because all the values the players can manipulate this item to just turn out to be the ocarina. Well, almost all items at least. There's one very useful value that can be used. If we interrupt the Great Bay cutscene and use a like to pick up a lost Hylian shield, we can start the glitch. When we now walk in front of a 1 rupee chest in the game, we can actually obtain most of the masks in the entire game. This sounds super useful, right? Well, yes, but there's one problem with this. There's not a single 1 rupee chest in the game, so this trick remains useful only in theory.
Talking about rupees, did you know that there is an unused minigame in Majora's Mask that can still be accessed? If we walk outside of Termina, you'll find a gwei circling around Clocktown permanently. This might seem pointless at first, but if you stand under it and play the Sonata of Awakening, a cutscene will start during which you can move, which is usually a good indicator that this minigame was never finished. The gwei will start dropping rupees as he flies and eventually drop a red rupee as the final one before it flies away. However, if you shoot the gwei right after it dropped 20 rupees, it will get stuck in the air and Termina ends up in a weird glitched state. You can't use arrows anymore and explosions affect the lighting of the scene. Well, that is if you can use an explosive, because pretty much every usable item will just disappear. It is a fun but weird glitch to mess around with and is completely useless, but actually quite nice. Since we're talking about weird things, let's look at the weird shot in Ocarina of Time, which is used fairly often as adult Link, but can also be performed in child form. But boy, can this be weird if you do it as child Link using the boomerang. If done correctly, Link will just get stuck in the ground with some weird side effects. These can be that Link's face either loses its texture entirely or swaps his eyes with mouths. In addition, his leg starts spinning when touching the ground. We have no clue at all what's happening here, to be honest, but this is really fun to look at. But back to Majora's Mask. One of our favorite glitches is the 0th day glitch, as you might have guessed already. The 0th day glitch allows you to use restricted items in different forms as you are a different form in the internal memory. However, if you are too late on this trick, this can happen. The game now tries to apply the internal bone structure of the form you're supposed to be in to the one that is currently rendered, and this leads to your model going all over the place. This is really darn useless, but it looks pretty nice and the game doesn't crash. On Virtual Console or emulator at least.
Well, since we're talking about Majora's Mask, let's talk about the boss Georg for a moment. His jump attack to grab an opponent that is in the water depends on the height of the player. Usually, this isn't a big deal. However, if we attack him before the fight starts, by using a weird shot for example in order to hit him and initiate the fight, we can soft lock the game in a fun way. Of course, we can also just start the fight and then use the Goron mask to void out in order to keep the fight active. However, once we're up on top, we use the infinite sword glitch and jump down in order to hover above the platform. This is important as we are not allowed to touch the platform for this to work. However, we now hover over the water and wait for Georg to swim around. Once he does that, we put on the Deku mask and void out, which will place us onto the last solid position we stood on, which is up top. As the fight is still active, Georg will now attempt to catch us out of the water and jump all the way up to where we are, and he will eventually get stuck. He can't be hit anymore and won't fall back down. leaving us with an undefeatable Georg. But it's still fun to see though. Unfortunately, it isn't that fun having to play the Song of Soaring or Time in order to reset it all. Thanks for watching everybody, I hope you enjoyed. If you want to watch more videos, be sure to click the annotations on the screen right now. And also be sure to subscribe and click the bell button so you won't miss anything, because way more content is coming.